Hi guys, you're welcome back to Mitch Fits. Here we'll learn tips, tricks, and techniques of making beautiful and amazing outfits. Please guys, if this is your first time on my channel, you're welcome. Do not forget to hit on that subscribe button and click on the notification bell to stay updated on all my tutorial videos. For this particular tutorial, I'll be showing you how to stitch all these pieces together. I have a detailed tutorial already on my channel on how to draft this front pattern, and I'll be posting how to draft the back block soon. So if you'd love to go through this sewing process with me, then let's head down to my sewing machine. Alright guys, I have my fabrics cut in twos, and this is my center front cut on fold. This is the side front and the cup patterns. I have my half-inch seam allowance on every of these piece, and this, as you can see, is cut in two, one for the left and one for the right side. So this is what I'm using for my yoke. You can see the net I'm using for my yoke. So there's something I want to tell you about this. That is, when using yoke for your dress, especially a skin tone net fabric, to help it blend very well with your skin, so you'll not be having any gap on your net fabric. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to trim off this half-inch seam allowance that I already included on my net fabric. And you know, net fabric stretches, so if you are using the one that doesn't stretch very well, then you can go ahead to trim off the half-inch seam allowance, so by the time you stitch it to your dress, it's going to be well fitted and well blended on your body. But if you're using the one that stretches very well, then you can go ahead to trim off about 1 inch from the yoke chest line. Now guys, let's go ahead to sew. Here I have my lace fabric as my main fabric, and I went ahead to fuse a strong interface on my inner fabric. In our local fabric shops here in Nigeria, this strong interface is called a strong breast pad. So that is what I'm using to pad my cups. I already introduced this very interface on one of my tutorial videos, and I showed you guys how exactly it looks like. So this is what I'm using, and after padding it, it's going to come out firm, just like using boning to cage your bust cup. So after stitching these both pieces together, the center and the side cups, which is the very first step to take in sewing your three-part corset cups, I'm going to trim off the excess from the interface. So you can see me trimming off the excess from the half-inch seam allowance. So I'm going to trim the first one and then trim the second side. I am doing this to reduce the bulkiness from the seam, to keep this area flat. So after trimming that off, I'm going to sew in the top of the cup, which has the chest line, that is the number 1 and the number 2 patterns fused together. So in sewing this, I'm going to start from the dart line, which is the center. So I'm going to start stitching from the dart line to one side of the cup, like you can see me do right here. So I'm doing this because it feels easier to sew it this way, and also to avoid one side of the cup longer than the other. So after stitching that side, I'm going to flip this over and continue my stitch from the center also down to the other side. So guys, this is the first one out. This is the first one I have sewn, and you can see how it looks like right now. I would have to take this to my pressing table to press the seam lines open. So here I'm going to stitch the second cup pieces together in case you missed the first one. I notched the center of the first piece, and here I'm going to stitch the two pieces together following the notch I made on the bust point. So I'm going to start from the top and stitch down to the end of it. After doing that, I'll trim off the excess just like I did from the first cup. So here, this is how it looks like after stitching the both pieces together, and the excess part is trimmed off from the seam to keep that place flat before sewing in the first piece. Just like I did for the first cup, I'll do just the same thing for this second cup. Now I have it sewn, and this is how it looks like before pressing with my pressing iron. So you can see how nice it's cupped and how nice the curve came out. You can see how it looks like inside. I'm going to trim off that excess and then press it with my pressing iron. So guys, make sure to press open every seam lines and also trim off any excess if there's any, like I'll be doing for the lower part of these cups, to keep the cup looking neat and nice and well curved. Next is stitching the bodies together, that is the center front and the side front bodies. So I'm going to start from here, which is the first step to take. So I'll be stitching from the under bust down to the full top length. So I'm going to stitch with just half inch, the half inch I created for the seam allowance. So this is how it looks like after stitching the half inch. Now I'm going to stitch the other side of it, and I'm going to also start from the under bust down to the full length. I'm done stitching this, and as you can see, I have not pressed this yet with my pressing iron, but this is how nice it is looking. It came out really nice and looking flat already. So here I have pressed my cups with my pressing iron, so you can see how it looks like inside. I pressed open the seam lines, and I made use of my tailor's ham to do this, to help the curve come out perfect. So you can see how nice it is looking here. I also went ahead to press open the seam lines for the bodies, and I'll be using the dart lines as my guide when stitching these both together. Here I'm going to trim off half inch from the top of this cup, just the interface and not the fabric, to keep this place flat when stitching the yoke to the cups. The next step to take is sewing the cups to the bodies, and I'm going to be starting from the dart line like I do usually. I like to start from the center, which is the dart line, to help me keep my sewing on track, because I don't want one side longer than the other. If not, I'll start to loosen and re-sewing again. So I'm going to flip it over and start also from the center, which is the dart line. I'll stitch it down to the other side of the cup. So you can see how I am arranging the both pieces together to be on equal lines, stitching with just half of an inch. I've finished stitching this cup in, and this is how it looks like. So I'll have to take this to my pressing table to press this side of it very well, so it will come out flat and looking all nice. You can also see how the dart lines of the cup and the lower part align with each other. The next step I'm going to take is to sew in the next cup. Here I'm done sewing in the next cup, and this is how it looks like right now. See the way the both of them look like. I'll take this to my pressing table to iron very flat to keep it looking nice, and also to remove the rumples around the cups. So I'm going to take this over to remove the rumples around the cups with my pressing iron to keep it looking all beautiful, neat and nice. Also, you can choose to trim off the excess part from the underbust of these cups, but for me, I like to leave it in to keep the underbust firm. Now the next step I'll be taking here is to sew in my yoke. So this is how my yoke looks like on my dress before stitching. I went ahead to pin the yoke together because I cut my yoke in twos, just like I did for every part of this top. So I first stitched the neckline of this yoke using one of the net as my lining and the other as my main fabric to turn the neckline. And I also did the same thing for the back of this top, which will be on my next tutorial. So what I'm doing here now is to sew in the front yoke to the chest line, that is to the bust cups, and definitely I'll be starting with center to center in sewing them together, that is starting with the center of the yoke to the center of this top. So guys, you can see how I placed the yoke on the top, that is the bust area, before stitching the both pieces together. Please, if you cannot sew your yoke to your top without any squeeze or having excess on one side of your cup, please go ahead to pin your yoke to your fabric. Go ahead to pin your yoke to your bust area, or the chest area if I may say, so that it will be very easy for you to stitch the both of them together without any problem, or without you having to loosen your stitch after sewing them, because it is much easier to sew when you pin the both of them together properly, as you can see me do right here. Now go ahead to stitch the both of them together. So guys, when stitching your yoke to your top, make sure to always adjust the yoke on the seam line to avoid your yoke from entering into your sewing allowance, to avoid any squeeze especially when you get to the center front, because this is a sweetheart neckline and it can be sometimes difficult when stitching the center front, especially when it's a deep sweetheart neckline. But this one is not too deep, so you can work your ways with it. Now I'm going to start stitching, and on the center front I'm going to stretch my net fabric open so that I can see the space in there to avoid my yoke from gathering into my sewing. Now I have crossed that part and I'm going to stitch in my yoke completely to the other side. But if you choose not to sew your yoke in this way, then go ahead to turn the chest line of your main fabric with your lining, and you can even finish up the dress before attaching your yoke to the chest line, especially when you are going to be embellishing that area of the top. Now I am done stitching my yoke to my main fabric, and this is how it looks like. You can see how nice and how beautiful it's looking even before completing this dress. So what I did here was to stretch the center front to avoid any gathering on the top, and I'm going to be trimming off any excess if there happens to be any. And when this dress is complete, this is how it's going to blend into the skin, as you can see right here, just like what I am doing right here. So I'm going to turn over the chest line with my lining to cover up the rough edges on the chest line. Now for my lining, I cut and sew exactly like I did for the main fabric, and I went ahead to pin my lining to the chest line of my main fabric, so it will be very easy when stitching them together. So this is how it looks like on the inside of the main fabric, and like I said earlier, I went ahead to trim off 1/2 inch of the interface so it will be easy and keep that place flat when stitching the chest line to the main fabric. Another thing I did here was to add boning to my lining, because I don't want to add it to my main fabric. I decided to add it to just my lining to keep it on the inside. The last thing I'll be doing now is to turn over the chest line and finish up this dress. So guys, if you enjoyed this tutorial like I enjoyed making it, I hope you click on that subscribe button and hit on the notification bell for more detailed tutorials. For the lower part of this dress, that is the skirt part, I'll be making a tutorial on it, on how to cut the skirt, and also how to cut your skin tone net sleeve to blend very well to your skin. So this is how it looks like on the back. This is the back view of the dress, and this is how it looks like on the inside of the dress. If you do not know how to attach all these pieces together, that is the top bodice and the lower part, I have a tutorial already on my channel on the making of a corset top from start to finish. So guys, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please do not forget to follow this channel, hit on the notification bell, and also share this video so more people can get to see this and learn how to make it as well. I'll drop the link of the part 1 of this tutorial in my description box, where it has the pattern drafting of the front block, so you can get to learn this from the very beginning. Also, I'll be explaining on my skirt cutting tutorial why you have to deepen the center back of your skirt to have this V-shaped look. So this is the first look of this dress, and it's a long straight gown, a long straight corset gown. Though the whole process of this making was not recorded, I'll be attaching a wrapper on it to give it another look. So this is how the center back of the top looks like. That is the top bodice with the net attached to the back, and this is how it looks like with the stones on the keyhole neckline. I'll be explaining more on my next tutorial on how to cut this keyhole neckline for the center back. Here I have the dress all ready before I'll be attaching the wrapper on the dress. So please do not forget to follow this channel for more video tutorials. Like this video if you find it helpful, and also drop your comments or your questions if you have any to be asked. So for now, I'll see you in my next tutorial. Bye.